The stone! My brow, it burns! The pain, I cannot shield myself! Mercy, the mud!
The first stone split Lady Endellion's brow before she could draw breath. She crumpled into the mud of the square, silk gown torn, arms flung wide, not to shield herself, but the boy crouched behind her. "Peregrine," she rasped through bloodied lips. "Don't look away. Remember his face. Remember it." Another stone struck, then another, and somewhere in that howling mob stood the Duke who had once kissed her hand in candlelight, the same Duke who had signed the order for her death. Would the boy live long enough to whisper the traitor's name? Would anyone ever know what truly happened in that square? If you love stories of forbidden romance, betrayal, and slow, perfect revenge dressed in Regency silk, please hit that subscribe button and stay with me. Endellion's story begins right now, and trust me, you don't want to miss who steps out of the crowd next.
Sleep well, my love.
6 months before that day in the square, Lady Endellion Trevethan woke to the cry of gulls and the soft hush of her son's breathing beside her. Peregrine had crept into her bed again, sometime in the night, curled small against her ribs. She did not move. She rarely did when he came to her like this, half asleep, smelling of milk and salt, and the lavender her maid Wenna tucked into his pillows. Their cottage stood at the edge of the cliffs, 2 miles from the great house she had once called home. It was modest, a single hearth, a kitchen that smelled of bread and wood smoke, a garden where Peregrine chased the chickens and shouted nonsense at the sea. Endellion told the village she was a widow. The village pretended to believe her. They were kind in the way fishing people are kind, which is to say, they did not ask, and they did not forget. She was 24 years old. Her hands had once been white and useless. Now, they peeled potatoes and mended linen, and held her son's small face when he woke, crying from dreams he could not name.
"Mama, the man came again."
What man, my love?
"The one with the silver buttons. He stood by the gate."
It was only a dream, Perry.
"Mama," Peregrine murmured, stirring. "The man came again." She went very still. "What man, my love?" "The one with the silver buttons. He stood by the gate." Wenna looked up sharply from where she was banking the fire. Their eyes met across the room, and Endellion felt something cold slide down her spine, slow as a finger. "It was only a dream, Perry," she said. She kissed his hair. She did not believe it was a dream. That afternoon she walked the cliff path with her son.
It's beautiful out here, isn't it?
"Yes, I love it.
Look at the waves.
They're so big."
The wind off the sea pulled at her cloak, and Peregrine ran ahead, his dark curls whipping, his laughter snatched away on the gusts. He was 4 years old. He had her grey eyes and someone else's mouth, and every time she looked at him too long, she had to look away. Down in the cove, old Jowan was mending nets. He raised a weathered hand. She raised hers. He had pulled her from the surf the night she came to this village, half drowned and silent, her belly already swelling beneath her ruined gown. He had never asked her name. She had told him Endellion, because it was true, and because she had been too tired to lie. "Boy's getting fast," Jowan called. "Too fast," she answered. He looked at her then, in that long, quiet way of his. "There was a rider on the coast road this morning, my lady." She had told him not to call her that. He never listened. "What sort of rider?" "Southern horse. Good cloak. Asking after a woman with a child." The wind seemed to stop. Peregrine's laughter came back to her, thin and far away. "Did you tell him?" Jowan spat into the sand. "I told him there are 100 women with children between here and Penzance. I told him to try the next village. He did not believe me, my lady." "He will come back." She thanked him. Her voice did not shake. She had practiced for years, not letting her voice shake. That night she sat by the fire with Wenna, while Peregrine slept. The older woman's needle flashed in and out of a small torn shirt.
It is him, after all this time.
We do not know that.
We know.
"It is him," Wenna said quietly. "After all this time, we do not know that. We know." Endellion stared into the flames. She thought of a ballroom in London 4 winters past. Candles reflected in tall windows. A man with dark hair bending over her gloved hand. She thought of the way he had said her name, as if it were a vow. She thought of the night he had told her to run, and how she had been foolish enough, just for a moment, to believe he meant it kindly. "Wenna," she said, "if anything happens, if they come for me, you will take Peregrine. You will go to my brother in Bristol. You will not look back." "My lady, do not speak of—" "Swear it." Wenna swore. Outside, the wind rose. Somewhere along the coast road, hooves struck stone, and a rider in a southern cloak with silver buttons turned his horse toward the cliffs. Endellion did not yet know his name, but she would. Before the month was out, she would know it, and she would wish, more than anything she had ever wished in her quiet, careful life, that she had run further. The rider came on a Tuesday. Endellion was in the garden pulling weeds when she heard the gate creak. She did not look up at first. The village children sometimes wandered in, hungry for the apples on her one stubborn tree. Then she heard the boots, heavy, spurred, not a child's step. She stood slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. He was tall, black cloak, silver buttons catching the pale autumn sun. A face she had never seen before, lean and clean-shaven, with eyes the color of wet slate. He took off his hat, with a courtesy that did not reach his mouth. "Lady Endellion Trevethan." It was not a question. For one long heartbeat she considered lying. She considered laughing in his face and calling him mad. Then she saw Peregrine in the kitchen doorway behind her, small hands gripping the frame, and every word in her throat turned to ash. "Wenna," she said, not turning. Her voice was steady. She did not know how. "Take Peregrine inside, now." She heard the door close. She heard the bolt slide. "You have me at a disadvantage, sir. My name is Mr. Caradoc Vine. I am here on behalf of His Grace the Duke of Monnon." The name struck her harder than the first stone ever would. She felt it in her knees. She felt it behind her eyes. She did not let it show. She had not been a lady in society for nothing, once. She knew how to bleed inside a smile. And what business has His Grace with a fisherman's widow? Vine's mouth moved. It was almost a smile. It was not kind. "My lady, please. The cottage is small. The boy has your eyes. Let us not insult each other." He reached into his coat. She flinched before she could stop herself. but it was only a small leather purse and a folded square of cloth he did not unfold. His Grace offers you a generous sum, £300 a year, paid quarterly, a house in Yorkshire, far from any port, a new name, a tutor for the boy when he comes of age. In return, you will leave Cornwall before the week is out. You will never write. You will never return. You will never, under any circumstance, speak the name of the child's father. She looked at the purse. She looked at the man holding it. She thought of the cliff path, the gulls, Jowan's weathered hand, the bread rising under a cloth in her kitchen, the whole small, careful world she had stitched together with bleeding fingers. And if I refuse? Vine tucked the purse away. The cloth he kept, my lady. His Grace is a forgiving man, but he is being married in the spring to a princess of a foreign house. There are people in London who would pay a great deal to know that a former mistress lives quietly in Cornwall with a 4-year-old boy who has the Monon jaw. His Grace would prefer those people never find you. He cannot guarantee it forever. There it was, soft as silk, sharper than any blade. That is a threat, Mr. Vine. That is a kindness, my lady. The threat would be different. She felt her hands begin to shake. She pressed them flat against her apron. I will have your answer by Friday, he said. He bowed. He turned to go. At the gate, he paused. His Grace asked me to tell you one thing. He said you would understand. What? He said, the candles in the window are still lit. Then he was gone. Hooves on the road. Silver buttons fading into the gold of the dying afternoon. Endellion stood in the garden for a very long time. The wind moved through her hair. Inside the cottage, Peregrine was singing a small, tuneless song to Wenna, the way he did when he was frightened and pretending not to be. Candles in the window. He had remembered. After all this time, the bastard had remembered. She walked into the house. She bolted the door. She knelt on the kitchen floor and pulled her son into her arms, and she did not cry, because crying was a luxury for women who still had time. By the time the sun set, she had made her choice. It was not the choice Vine expected. It was not the choice that would save her, but it was the one that would, in the end, bring a duke to his knees. What did the candles in the window mean? And what choice could be reckless enough to damn a duke? She did not sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table with a single candle burning, and she made a list in her head of every person who had loved her, and every person who had used her, and she found the two lists had more names in common than she liked to admit. The Duke of Monon, Tristan Pengelly. She had not let herself think his given name in 4 years. Saying it now, even silently, was like pressing a thumb to an old bruise. He had been 26 when she met him, already a duke, already a man people lowered their voices around. He had courted her for 1 season with a quiet, terrifying focus, and she had been 19 and motherless and stupid with it. He had told her his uncle would never approve the match. He had told her to wait. He had told her to trust him. And on the night she had told him she was carrying his child, he had gone very still, and then he had kissed her forehead, and then he had given her a purse of money and the name of a coachman, and he had told her to run. She had run. She had been running ever since. But Caradoc Vine had said the candles in the window were still lit. That was their old signal, a promise between them in the early days. If ever he could not come to her, he would put 2 candles in his study window, and she would know he was thinking of her, and she would know to wait. It was a lie. It had always been a lie. He had let her go. He was marrying a princess in the spring, so why send the message at all? She rose before dawn and woke Wenna.
I need you to take Peregrine to my brother in Bristol, today, this morning.
My lady,
You swore.
I swore, but you, what of you?
I will come when I can.
If I can.
Endellion, what
I need you to take Peregrine to my brother in Bristol, today, this morning. Wenna's face went white. My lady, you swore. I swore. But you, what of you? I will come when I can, if I can. Endellion. Wenna had not used her name in 4 years. What are you going to do? She looked at her son sleeping by the hearth. His small hand was curled under his cheek. He had her grey eyes and Tristan's mouth and a laugh that belonged to no one but himself. I am going to find out what he wants from me. Truly, not what Vine says he wants. What he wants. It is a trap. Of course it is a trap. But a trap means he wants something. And if he wants something, I have something to bargain with. And I will not spend the rest of my life waiting for a stranger with silver buttons to take my son. Wenna began to weep silently as she packed. Endellion did not weep. She folded Peregrine's small shirts. She tucked the carved wooden horse Joan had whittled into the bundle. She wrote nothing down. She trusted nothing to paper. When the cart came at first light, she lifted Peregrine into Wenna's arms, still half asleep. He stirred. He reached for her. "Mama, my brave boy." She kissed his forehead. She kissed his eyelids. She kissed the small, warm hollow behind his ear, where he had always smelled like himself. "Be good for Wenna. I will come and find you. Do you hear me? I will come. Promise. I promise." She watched the cart until it was only a dark shape on the cliff road, and then she went back into the empty cottage, and she was sick into the basin, and then she washed her face, and then she did something she had not done in 4 years. She opened the locked chest at the foot of her bed. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were 3 things. A silk gown the color of bruised plums, a string of pearls her mother had left her, and a small folded paper that was not a letter but a list, in her own hand, of every name she had ever heard Tristan whisper in his sleep. Names of men, names of places. One name underlined twice, a name she had never understood until Vine had spoken of a foreign princess and a spring wedding. She had been collecting weapons for 4 years and had not known it. That afternoon, she walked to the cove. Joan was there, as he always was. "I need to get to London," she said, quietly, quickly, "and I need a name that is not mine." The old man looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood, brushed the sand from his hands, and nodded once. "My sister's boy runs salt up the coast to Bristol. From there, the mail coach. 3 days, my lady. Maybe 4. You will travel as a governess. I have a cousin who can give you papers. They will not be perfect. They will be enough. Why are you helping me?" He looked at the sea. "Because 4 years ago, a girl crawled out of that water with nothing but a baby in her belly, and the sense to keep her mouth shut. And because dukes are not gods, my lady. They only think they are." She did not cry, but something inside her, something she had carried curled small and frightened for 4 years, uncurled and stood up. 3 days later, in a borrowed black gown and a borrowed name, Lady Endellion Trevethan stepped down from a mail coach onto the wet stones of a London street. She did not look like a woman who had come to beg. She looked like a woman who had come to collect. And somewhere across the city, in a house with tall windows, 2 candles were burning. But who had truly lit them, and who were they meant to summon? London smelled of coal smoke and wet horse. She took a room above a milliner's shop in a street so narrow the sun did not reach the cobbles. She paid in coin. She gave the name Mrs. Carwin. The milliner asked no questions. London was full of women who paid in coin and gave names that fit them poorly. For 2 days, she watched the house on Grosvenor Square. It had not changed. The black railings, the pale stone, the tall windows on the 2nd floor where the study was. She stood in doorways across the street, with her hood up, and she counted the comings and goings. A steward, at 7, each morning. A pair of footmen at noon. Vine, twice, in the same black cloak. And at dusk on the 2nd day, a carriage with a crest she did not recognize, and a woman stepping down from it, in a fur-lined cape, laughing at something her companion had said. The foreign princess. She was beautiful. Of course she was beautiful. Endellion watched her until her hands stopped shaking. That night she did not sleep. She sat by the small window in her rented room, and she went over the list in her head. The names, the places. One name in particular, a merchant's name. A man Tristan had spoken of 3 times in his sleep, always with the same word after. Debt, debt, debt. A duke who owed money to the wrong sort of merchant was a duke who could be made to listen. On the 3rd night, she did not go to the front door. She went to the mews behind the house. She had been there before, 4 winters ago, when she was 19 and reckless and in love. She knew which gate the grooms left unlatched. She knew the back stair. She knew the door at the top of it that opened on a small corridor outside his study. She wore the plum silk under a plain cloak. She did not know why. Perhaps because if she was going to be ruined a 2nd time, she wanted to be wearing something of her own choosing. The house was quiet. A clock somewhere chimed 11. She climbed the stair on slippered feet, her heart so loud she was certain a footman would come running just to silence it. None came. The study door was ajar. Candlelight spilled out. 2 candles, on the sill. Of course. She pushed the door open. He was at his desk. Tristan Pengelly, Duke of Monaghan, in shirt sleeves, with his dark hair falling over his brow, a glass of brandy at his elbow. He had a paper in his hand. When he looked up and saw her standing in the doorway, in plum silk, with rain in her hair, every color left his face. For one breath, neither of them moved. Then he was on his feet, knocking the chair backward. Endellion, sit down. My God, Endellion, how? Sit down. He sat, slowly, as if she were holding a pistol. She was not. She had something better. She closed the door behind her. She turned the key in the lock. And she walked to the desk and stood across from him, and she let him look at her, and she did not let her face move. You sent a man, she said, to my home, to my son. I had to know if it was you. You knew it was me. I hoped. His voice cracked on the word. Endellion, I have spent 4 years. Do not. Her own voice was a blade. Do not tell me what you have spent. I have spent 4 years scrubbing pots and pretending my son's father is dead. I have spent 4 years flinching every time a horse came down the cliff road. You spent 4 years engaged to a princess. Do not compare our accountings, your grace. He flinched at the title. Good. Why did you come? Because you sent Vine. Because you put candles in the window. Because you wanted me to come. So here I am. Tell me what you want, Tristan. The truth this time. And then I will tell you what it will cost you. He stared at her. Then, to her astonishment, he laughed. It was a broken, terrible sound. You think I sent Vine? He gave me your name. Endellion. He stood again. He came around the desk slowly, his hands open at his sides. I did not send Caradoc Vine. I have been looking for you for 4 years. Vine works for my uncle. The floor seemed to tilt. Your uncle is dead. My uncle is very much alive. My uncle has been regent of the dukedom, in all but name, since I was a boy. My uncle is the man who told me, the night you came to me with our child in your belly, that if I did not send you away, he would have you killed on the road before morning. I believed him. God help me, Endellion. I believed him, and I sent you off thinking I was saving your life. You gave me a purse. I gave you everything I had on me. I gave you a coachman I trusted with my life. That coachman was found in a ditch outside Reading, 3 days later. I have been searching for your grave ever since. She could not breathe. The princess, she whispered. My uncle's arrangement, signed in my name. I have not touched her hand. The candles, I light them every night for 4 years. In case you ever. A floorboard creaked in the corridor outside. They both froze. Tristan's eyes went to the door, then back to her. And in his face, she saw the boy she had loved at 19, and the man she had hated for 4 years. And underneath both of them, something far more frightening. Fear. Not for himself. Endellion, he said very quietly. Where is the boy? Where is our son right now? The footstep in the corridor came closer, and she realized, too late, that she had walked straight into the trap. Only the trap had never been Tristan's. Tristan moved before she did. He crossed the room in 3 strides, caught her wrist, and pulled her behind the heavy curtain that hung beside the window. He pressed a finger to her lips. His hand was shaking. Hers was not. Funny, she thought, how the body remembered how to be still. The study door opened. A man stepped in. Older, silver at the temples. The same wet slate eyes as Caradoc Vine, but harder. The way a stone is harder than the water that shapes it. Lord Ambrose Pengelly, the uncle. She had only ever seen him once, across a ballroom. She had not forgotten the face. He was not alone. Vine came in behind him, and behind Vine, 2 men, with the dull, careful movements of men, paid to do quiet work. Nephew. Ambrose's voice was mild. Vine tells me your little Cornish fisherwoman is in the city. He had her followed from the coaching inn. Imagine my surprise. Tristan said nothing. His hand tightened on hers behind the curtain. Come now, Tristan. The girl is somewhere in this house. The footman saw a woman in a dark cloak come through the mews. We have men at every door. There is no need for theatrics. Give her to me, and I will be merciful. I will send her back to Cornwall with enough money to live out her days. The boy can stay with her. You have my word. Tristan stepped out from behind the curtain. He did it alone. He moved her hand off his arm first, gently, and he stepped out into the candlelight in his shirt sleeves, and he stood between her hiding place and his uncle, as if he were a wall. There is no woman, uncle. Vine is mistaken. Ambrose smiled. It was the smile of a man who had been lying to his nephew since the nephew was a child, and knew exactly how the lies sat. Tristan, do not be tedious. The princess arrives in 6 weeks. We are not going to have a Cornish bastard turn up at the wedding breakfast. There is no bastard. There is a son, my son, and you will not touch him. I touched the coachman. Do you remember? The room went very quiet. Behind the curtain, Endellion's fingers found the small thing she had carried in the pocket of the plum silk, all the way from Cornwall. Not a pistol. Better than a pistol. The folded list, in her own hand, of every name Tristan had ever whispered in his sleep, including one name, a merchant in Bristol, a man to whom Lord Ambrose Pengelly owed £40,000 in debts, kept secret from the family solicitors. Debts paid out of dukedom coffers Ambrose did not own. She stepped out from behind the curtain. "Mr. Goodfellow of Bristol," she said, clearly, without trembling. Ambrose's face did not move, but something behind his eyes did. A small slipping thing. "I beg your pardon. £40,000, paid in 3 installments, 2 from the Mornan estate, 1 from a property in Kent that does not belong to you. Mr. Goodfellow keeps very careful books. I have seen them. I have also seen a letter, in your hand, requesting a 4th payment to be drawn against my son's inheritance, which is not yours to draw against, and which I can prove in any court in England you have already begun to drain." She did not have any such letter, but she had 4 years of names, and she had a duke whose face had just gone bone white at the word Goodfellow, and she had the only thing that mattered in a room full of men with knives. She had the angle. "You have nothing," Ambrose said. His voice was not quite right. "I have a sealed packet with my brother in Bristol. A solicitor I trust. Instructions that if I do not return to my son within the fortnight, the packet goes to the Lord Chancellor, to the Times, and to your future niece's father, who I understand is rather particular about the financial habits of the families his daughter marries into." She had no such packet. But Ambrose did not know that, and Vine, behind him, was looking at his master for the first time with something other than obedience. "Tristan," Ambrose said, quieter. "She is bluffing." Tristan turned his head slowly toward his uncle. "Is she?" Something in his voice. Some old buried thing finally standing up. "Get out of my house. This is not your... It is my house. It has always been my house. I have let you sit at the head of my table because I was a boy and afraid of you. I am not a boy any longer. Get out. Take Vine. Take your men. If you are not on the road to your country house by morning, I will sign every paper my solicitors have been begging me to sign for 4 years. Do you understand me, uncle? Get out." Ambrose looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at Endellion, and in his eyes she saw, plainly, that this was not over, that a man like Ambrose Pengelly did not lose. He only waited. He bowed, a small, mocking bow. He left. Vine followed. The 2 quiet men followed Vine. The door clicked shut. Tristan turned to her. His hands were shaking, both of them now. "Endellion, do not." She held up a hand. "Not yet. There is a cart on the Bristol road, with a woman and a 4-year-old boy on it. Until I have him in my arms, you do not get to say my name. I will send my fastest riders tonight. You will send no one. Your riders are your uncle's riders. I will send Jowan's cousin. I will go myself if I must. He nodded. He did not argue. That, more than anything, told her something had changed. She stood in the candlelight of his study, in a plum silk gown 4 years out of fashion, with rain still drying in her hair, and she understood that she had not won, not yet. She had bought a season, maybe a year. Ambrose was wounded, not killed, and wounded men were the most dangerous kind. But Peregrine would sleep in her arms again, and Tristan, for the first time in his life, was standing on his own feet. That would have to be enough for tonight. At the door she paused. She did not turn around. "The candles," she said. "Stop lighting them. If you want me, come and find me. In the daylight, with your name." She walked out into the London rain. 3 weeks later, in a small inn on the Bristol Road, a 4-year-old boy threw himself into his mother's arms and held on as if he meant to grow there. She did not let him go for a very long time, and somewhere, in a country house in Hampshire, Lord Ambrose Pengelly sat by a cold fire and began, very quietly, to write a list of his own. Would Tristan come for her, in the daylight, as she had asked? And what name had Ambrose just written, first, at the very top of his list? If you have made it this far, my darlings, please subscribe and stay close. Endellion's story is far from over. The stones in the square are still coming, and the Duke who watches them fall has not yet shown his hand. Spring came late that year. Endellion took a small house on the edge of a market town in Somerset. Not Cornwall. Cornwall was a place a man with silver buttons could find her. Somerset was a place where no one knew her, and where the apple orchards in May looked so much like the ones at her grandmother's old cottage that Peregrine ran into them laughing and did not come out for an hour. She did not call herself Lady. She called herself Mrs. Trevethan. The village understood she was a widow, with a child and a small income, and that was all the village needed to know. Wenna stayed. Jowan's cousin came up from the coast once a month, with letters and salt and news. The news from London was thin. The princess had arrived. The wedding had been postponed once, then twice, then quietly cancelled, with a vague mention of the Duke of Mornan's health. Lord Ambrose Pengelly had gone to the country and not returned. Caradoc Vine had taken a ship to the Indies in the autumn. None of it felt like enough. None of it felt like the end. She did not lie to herself about that. She slept with a small pistol in the drawer beside her bed, loaded. She had taught herself to load it in the dark. Peregrine grew. He turned 5 in June. He lost his first tooth in July. He asked, sometimes, about his father, and she did not lie to him, but she did not tell him everything either. She told him his father was a good man who had been kept away by bad men, and that one day, perhaps, the bad men would be gone, and his father would come. Peregrine accepted this, the way children accept the weather. He nodded. He went back to chasing the cat. Then, on a Tuesday in late September, a horse came down the lane. She was in the garden, the same as the day Vine had come. For one terrible moment, her hand closed on the pruning knife at her belt, and she thought, not again. Please God, not again. But it was not a black cloak. It was a plain travelling coat, dust on the shoulders, and the man who swung down from the saddle was not a stranger. Tristan looked older. There were lines at his mouth she did not remember. His dark hair was a little shorter. He did not smile. He stood at her gate in the autumn light, with his hat in his hands, and he waited. She walked to the gate. She did not open it. "You came," she said, "in the daylight." His voice was hoarse from the road. "With my name. You are a year late. I had things to settle. I did not want to come to you with my uncle still standing." A pause. "He is not standing now." She studied his face. "Dead? No. Tried. By the House of Lords, quietly, for fraud, against the estate. He will live the rest of his life in a cottage on a small island off the Scottish coast, with 2 men watching him. He will not write. He will not be written to. He is finished, Endellion. It is done." She felt something in her chest that she had carried for 5 years, tight and small and watchful, begin, at last, to loosen. She did not let it show. And the princess returned to her father with a generous settlement and my apology. She did not want me, Endellion. She wanted the title. I made sure she was not made to suffer for my uncle's arrangement. And what do you want now? He looked past her, into the garden, where a small, dark-headed boy was crouched in the dirt, arguing with a beetle. His face. She had forgotten, she realized, how much his face could change when he looked at the child. "I want," he said carefully, "to be invited in for tea. That is all I am asking for today. Tea, and to meet my son, and to leave again before sundown, if that is what you ask of me. I am not here to take anything from you, Endellion. I am here to begin paying back what was taken." She looked at him for a long time. Then she opened the gate. Peregrine came over slowly, the way children come to strangers. He looked up at Tristan with grey eyes that were his mother's, and a mouth that was not. Tristan went down on one knee in the dirt of her garden. This duke, this man who had once been afraid of his own uncle, and he held out his hand the way you hold out a hand to a small, wary dog. "My name is Tristan," he said. "I knew you when you were very small." "How small?" "Smaller than a loaf of bread." Peregrine considered this seriously. Then he put his small hand in Tristan's large one. "Mama says my father was kept away by bad men. Your mama is right. Are the bad men gone now?" Tristan looked up at her, over the boy's dark head. "Yes," he said. "The bad men are gone now." She did not weep until much later that night, alone, with the door shut. He did not stay. He had asked only for tea, and she had given him only tea, and at sundown he had risen and bowed to her in her own small parlour as if she were a queen, and he had told her he had taken rooms at the inn in the village, and that he would come again tomorrow, if she would have him, and the day after that, if she still would. He would come, he said, for as long as it took. He had nowhere else he needed to be. He came the next day, and the day after, and the day after that. She did not marry him that autumn. She did not marry him the next spring either. She made him court her, properly, in daylight, in front of a village that grew to know him as Mr. Pengelly, the quiet gentleman who came on Tuesdays and Fridays and was patient with the widow's boy. She made him earn every smile. She made him earn the right to her name. But on a Sunday in the May after that, in a small parish church in Somerset, Endellion Trevethan put her hand in Tristan Pengelly's and let him put a ring on it. Peregrine carried the ring on a green velvet cushion, and dropped it once on the way up the aisle. Wenna wept loudly enough for both of them. Jowan came up from the coast in his Sunday coat, smelling of salt and pipe smoke, and gave the bride away. There were no stones that day. There would never be stones in that square again, but Endellion kept the pistol in the drawer. Some lessons once learned are not unlearned. And somewhere, on a small island off the Scottish coast, an old man with silver at his temples was said, by the men who watched him, to spend his afternoons writing names on a piece of paper and burning them, one by one, in the fire. Loose ends are not always tied. Sometimes they are only watched. And Endellion Trevethan Pengelly, Duchess of Mornan, watched. Did Ambrose truly burn every name, or was one left unwritten? And what would Peregrine, the boy who once watched his mother shield him with her own body, grow up to do with the duchy his father had bled for? If you have stayed with me to the very end, my darlings, thank you. Truly, stories like Endellion's only live because you give them a place to live, in your evenings, and your quiet hours, and your beautiful, patient hearts. Please, if this story moved you, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment telling me your favorite moment, and stay close. There are more stories like this one coming, more ladies who refuse to kneel, more dukes who must learn the cost of silence, more candles in more windows. I will see you in the next one. Until then, be brave, be kind, and never ever forget the face of anyone who throws a stone.